Hi, I'm Bill from CJ Pony Parts. We do a lot of videos showing you how to add modern components to your classic Mustang. One of the most common ones is going to be a radio upgrade. If you have an original radio in your 60s Mustang, more than likely it's AM, or if you're lucky, maybe FM or an 8-track. Obviously, radios have come a long way since the 60s, but a lot of you still want the classic look. If you're trying to stay original looking but want all the modern radio features, the Custom Autosound Slidebar Radio might be just what you're looking for. When you first look at the Slidebar Radio, it looks like your standard factory AM radio, and that's the beauty in it. When it's turned off or even on, you can put it at a car show and it looks just like the factory radio. But if you want to use it, simply slide this over, the display disappears, you have a modern LCD display behind it. The radio has 25 presets, 300 watts of power, 7 different choices for the color, a direct plug-in for your iPod that will actually charge your iPod, as well as auxiliary inputs, auxiliary outputs, and 4-speaker power. Fully loaded, fully functioning, modern radio. When you slide this over, it looks just like a factory AM. On the back, you have separate plugs for the power and your speaker outputs, connection here for your iPod, separate connection for USB, a subwoofer pre-out, front and rear pre-outs, an input, CD changer control, as well as your antenna connection. The unit is also upgradable to work with Bluetooth. This particular Slidebar radio is designed for your 67 through 73 Mustang, but a 64 through 66 version is also available. We'll be installing this today in a 68 Mustang that already has an aftermarket CD player installed. We're going to be going with this brand new bezel to install our radio. For this installation, we need a 1/4-inch ratchet, 13mm deep socket, 1/2-inch socket, Phillips head screwdriver, wire strippers, wire cutter and crimper, and a test light. The Custom Autosound Slidebar doesn't require any kind of bezels or kits for installation. If you look at the back of the bezel, you can see how it's offset. This is offset in the exact same way, so you simply thread these off to install it. Slide it up into the bezel, and then reinstall the washers and retaining nuts. Hand tight's usually enough. Get them just slightly snug with a ratchet. No reason to crank them down. Make sure it's snug. Now we can install the knobs. So you can see when installed in the original 67 through 68 bezel, it looks like a factory AM radio. Anytime you're working on something electrical with your Mustang, the first step is going to be to disconnect the battery. Like we said, our 68 already has an aftermarket CD player in it, but the installation is going to be the same as well as the removal of your factory radio. There's 2 screws on the top of the bezel, 2 screws at the bottom, and you'll want to double check, depending on which radio you have, if a back strap was installed. That'll usually be somewhere under the dash supporting the radio. If there is a back strap, you want to remove that first. Next, remove the bezel and the 4 screws holding it in place. Disconnect the wires and remove the radio. If you're removing a good radio, you want to make sure when you cut the harness off, you leave yourself plenty of wires so you can use it elsewhere. In the case of our radio, it's not really working properly, so we're going to cut the wire short since we're not worried about it. These are the colors from our old speaker wires, and this is our new speaker harness here. All the colors are the same, so more than likely they are correct, but we want to make sure before we hook it up so our fade and our balance works. So we're going to test each speaker and figure out which one's where. To test the speaker wire, strip a small amount out and grab a small battery. A double A will actually work fine. The top of the battery is going to be the positive. Touch the positive and touch the negative, and you'll hear the speaker buzz. That way we'll know which speaker we're connecting our wiring harness to. That was our front left, so we locate front left on the harness. You're going to be using solderless connects for the installation. If you want to solder, by all means, go ahead. We found the solderless connects work fine for radios. We want to repeat the process with the 3 other speakers. The other harness we're going to hook up next is going to be our power harness. There's 5 connections on this harness. Typically, you'll only use 3. The main one here is going to be your constant. You'll have a switch and a ground. Your original radio may only have 1 power because your original presets were mechanical. Now the radios have storage, they have memory for the presets, which is why you have a switch and a constant. The other 2 here are a remote turn on for an aftermarket amplifier and a power antenna if your car has one. Now we're going to test our power leads. Before we can do that, you want to reconnect your battery. Now we're going to grab our test light and check our wires. You can ground it to your antenna, which is an excellent ground. The ignition off, first we'll check for 12 volts constant. That is 12 volts constant, that is correct. Check this red wire here. Okay, nothing on that. Now we'll try with the ignition on. And that is a good 12 volt switch source. All of our wires were good because we did already have an aftermarket radio in this car. If you don't have a good constant, you can use a fused wire, go directly to your battery. Ground can go anywhere on the chassis that's grounded, and switch power, the best place to grab that is off the back of the ignition switch. Once you redisconnect your battery, we can connect these wires. Now we're going to fish the auxiliary wires for our USB, auxiliary in, and iPod through the dash, connect the harnesses, and connect the antenna. And the harnesses are specific, so you actually can't put it in the wrong spot. Now before we mount it, we're going to reconnect our power and we'll try it out.
People.
Once you verify it's working properly, now we're going to screw it into the dash and then we'll show you all the functions of the radio. You might notice we did not install a back strap. We find with these radios with the metal radio bezel, it's really not necessary, but if you wanted to install one, you could. And our installation's finished. Now we'll run you through some of the basic functions of the radio. As you can see, when it's turned off and the display is flipped, it looks like an original AM radio. You can actually turn it on and use it without changing it too. If you need to access the display, simply slide over, you have a full digital display. This button here will allow you to choose between the equalizer, your balance, fader, loudness, subwoofer. If you do need to change something, you simply click there and then use this to turn it. This also has a sub menu. Once you go through the main menu, if you hold this for 2 seconds, you get a sub menu. Now you can adjust the dimmer, choose your color, control the beeps, Control what volume last, so leave the volume at the last volume it was when you turn the car off. Then back to source. Then you turn the knob back here to adjust your source. Go to the radio, and back to get auxiliary, which we're using the iPhone. Well, I'm sure it's going to be tough to tell on the video. This thing absolutely sounds great in this car. Huge upgrade from the old radio. It's got tons of power and really sounds crystal clear. The Custom Autosound Slidebar is a great choice for your classic Mustang. As you can see here, it looks like a factory radio, but slide this over, you have a modern digital display. Plus, you have all the features of a modern radio. Auxiliary inputs, iPod control, USB, as well as Bluetooth capability. Installation should only take you around an hour, so you'll be back on the road in no time.